make it no more. I got to holler and so the relationship pro. Before I pack up and go, I got my foot out the door and down for leaving. But first, let me holler at Zoe, the voice of reason. I got one foot out the door and down for leaving. But first, let me holler at Zoe, the voice of reason.
Ladies and gentlemen, ZoWilliams Rising. I'm telling you right now, if you're in your cars, if you're in your trucks, now's the time to check out. Just pull over, turn the car off, put the kids away. It's another heavy, very informative topic tonight. And as is normal, commonplace, I need you to get to your phone lines, 855-369-9898. Call me right now because I'm about to reveal a topic that is more prevalent and pervasive than anybody would know. Tonight's topic, the rebirth of bondage, a terrifying look into the human sex trafficking and slave market. You mean to tell me in America, 2011, there are still slaves? Yes, indeed. And before we get into that topic, I have special guests in the building to talk about an issue that is very, very, very serious in America today. Kids are in danger, in peril. Relationships are in danger and in peril. And it's going to be incredible. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a quick break. And when I come back, we're going to introduce my special guests. We're going to talk about this show. I have authors. I have all type of people on deck right now to discuss the rebirth of bondage, a terrifying look into the human sex trafficking and slave market. It's time to figure out who's the survival of the fittest right now. I'll be back at 2.2. See you in a minute. Peace. Ladies and gentlemen, ZoWilliams, the voice of reason on Foxxhole Radio, Sirius XM 98. Thursday nights, you know what this is. It's the voice of reason. Tonight's topic, the rebirth of bondage, a terrifying look into the human sex trafficking and slave labor market. Now, before I get into this, I want you guys to follow me on Twitter, at ZoWilliams. Of course, you can also follow the Foxxhole on Twitter, at Foxxhole. Go to my website, www.ZoWilliams.com. And before we get into this topic, I want you guys to, anybody that's in the Chicago area, you got to come out and see me June 25th, 2011, at some place called the Little Pearl in Chicago. That's 1070 East 47th Street, Chicago, Illinois, 60653. I'll be there from 8 p.m. to 1 a.m. in the morning doing a relationship roundtable. If you're in Chicago, I'll be mentioning that throughout the show. Let's participate. Let's do it. Let's fix our relationships. This is a relationship show. And a lot of people don't understand that there are grave complexities in relationships, and if mismanaged, can overflow and turn into something similar to a volcanic eruption. We call it domestic violence. It's very tough. And before we get into the rebirth of bondage, that topic, the meat of it, we have some special guests in the building, and they want to talk about domestic violence in America and how prevalent that is. And they have a special event set up with a lot of special people, some of my favorite people. And I want to introduce them now so they can talk about this event and they can talk about the people that are participating to bring awareness to this serious and pervasive issue in American and just global relationships, period. So without further ado, let me introduce some of the people who are here right now, my special guests. Sarah Burden, director of Heaven Hills. She'll talk about what that is. Nicole Coleman, president of the Little Princess Foundation. And Elsa Braithwaite.
Yes.
Oh, I love the name. Are you English?
Well, maybe somewhere.
Connected some kind of way, yes. And Ebba Lundberg, and these are partners of Casa Dior, and they're going to be talking about domestic violence. So let me start down at the end of the table real quick with Sarah Burden. Sarah, talk to me about the prevalence of domestic violence in American relationships right now.
Well, the prevalence, it is one of the, it's a health and safety issue, and for law enforcement, it is the most dangerous call that they can be called out on, because it really is, very volatile. And as far as the prevalence, 1 in 9 women are being abused every minute in the
Wow.
United States.
Wow.
And, it speaks to numbers. And as far as providing services, when a woman is feeling that threatened, that her life is on the line, she needs to be able to find a safe place to go. And Haven Hills is providing services for domestic violence for 34 years. Mm-hmm. And first and foremost, we have a 24/7 crisis line. And we also have a 30-day confidential crisis shelter for women and children who really need to be safe to plan their next steps on how to keep themselves safe. And then we have extended services to reach beyond that to help them break the cycle and get back on their feet to some level of self-sufficiency.
Wow.
And what we're doing here tonight is we're working with Casa de Cor. We're actually going to benefit from this function that they're putting on June 2nd. And we really appreciate the efforts, and we really want people who want to help eradicate domestic violence to come on out and support this event so that we can continue the work that we do in providing those services.
Well, we have somebody very special on the line right now who is in service to your call. Very powerful brother. I have great respect for him. He took a chance on me, and I think he's taking a chance on you guys by lining up with you and supporting you. Without further ado, the boss man, Jamie Foxx. Talk to me, brother.
Hey, man.
What's happening now?
First of all, I just want to say I'm so happy to be involved with everyone there. Elsa reached out to me, and Warren reached out to me. I thought I think it's a fantastic cause. I do this thing every year too with Halle Berry, the Genesee program, and there cannot be enough awareness about domestic violence, especially when it comes to women. I was just I didn't get the young lady's name that was speaking just a minute ago.
That's Sarah Burdine.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I think it's just alarming to hear those numbers. And I think that it's so important that we keep putting the pressure on people to listen to what the numbers are and how significant and how deep it runs. I have 2 daughters. A lot of times people can't really understand when you're talking about domestic violence, what it's about until you have your own children, your own little girls, that you want to protect them, and you don't want any harm to come to them. And it's like I said, I would be involved with this no matter what, but I'm so happy that Warren and Elsa has gotten me involved with it. June 2nd, we're going to have a great time. We're also going to, like I said, bring about awareness. And I think also what needs to happen, too, is that we need a mindset change. And so I know you can understand this. Mm-hmm. Coming from R&B music and coming from where we grew up and how even our music was more catered towards a woman and making sure we were about, how she felt and those types of romantic songs. And now we've gone into sort of this thing to where that sort of innocence is lost, and losing that innocence in our music and in our culture, especially with the young folks, we start to lose a grasp on what domestic violence really is. Mm-hmm. So I hope that, like I said, everyone will come out and enjoy this, and like I said, get a chance to really get more knowledge about what it is.
Wow, man. I appreciate you, brother. Not only, your talent and your leadership and your belief in me and the Foxxhole and what we've been doing for the past few years, but this kind of stuff shows people the human side of Jamie Foxx. And a lot of times people see the actor, they see the musician, but they don't see the human. And right here, this highlights the humanity in Jamie Foxx.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. I talk about this all the time. I say, listen, all of the stuff that we do, whether it's radio, television, movie, it really doesn't make a difference if we don't use it to shine light on the things that are that need to be that need to be enlightened. Look at we We just finished 25 years of a woman who has taken care of, I would say, every woman in every nook and cranny in every dark corner of the world. And Miss Oprah Winfrey, I got a chance to do her final shows. And one thing I learned about Oprah, regardless of public opinion, regardless if it was popular or not, she was always willing to tackle those subjects that no one wanted to touch. Domestic violence is an ugly thing.
Right.
We live in a male-dominated society, so therefore the sweeping under the rug of domestic violence has been going on for eons, and we gotta stop it. Especially when things happen like in the press, and I won't name the names or anything like that, but the way we even view those, and this is what I was having a conversation about this a few days ago at my house, and the whole thing, and maybe the young lady that's there can speak to this, the woman felt like, well, she provoked it. Well, she did this, and would place blame on the woman. And if you look at any scandal that happens in the news, if a man cheats on his woman, well, what did she do? Maybe she didn't do the right thing, and that's why he left. Or what? And we have to stop that. We have to put an end to it. As a matter of fact, the young ladies that I was talking to that was at my house, I made them be quiet for like an hour until they could understand that saying the word provoke or saying anything like that to place blame on this woman is wrong, because we knew from the beginning, you know from the beginning when you're out on the playground and you're a little boy and you see little girls that you're stronger than the little girl. Right. Even if that girl kicked you, spat on you, whatever, you knew that you had the capability to bring serious harm to that woman. Right. It's the same thing now. We know deep inside of us that domestic violence is wrong. What we need to start tackling now, Zoe, is how do we talk to the guys? How do we just have a group, a room full of guys? Because what's happening is the women are doing their part. The women are getting together and they're holding hands with each other and they're making sure that someone's taking care of it. What we're not doing is confronting that man that may have a problem and saying, hey, listen, you got a problem. Let's sit down and let's work this out. And I will pose this to you, Zoe. It would be, and you could do the legwork on this. For women, don't put your hands on me.com, and for men, just walk away.
Wow.
We really need to reach out not only to the women but to the men to say, hey, listen, it all comes from us. Right. You got to be able to man up to the situation and be able to step away from it.
So, Jamie, do me a favor and ask and interview Elsa about what this event is about. I want to sit back and listen to you talk to Elsa and just bring this event to the mind state and the consciousness of all the people that are listening. Elsa's on right now.
Well, first of all, just let me say this. Elsa is a wonderful person when it comes to just doing your houses and buildings, and I don't even know how to put it into words. She's almost like a famous director when it comes to putting things together. When it comes to decorations of the houses and things, I know I'm not saying it the right way, but
interior design.
Interior design is the word. Is the $20,000 answer. But she did a fabulous job with my house, my personal house, and bringing someone into your house personally. You know how that is because you have to go into that place every day. I didn't even like going to my house. I talk a lot of times about how big my house was. My house was big and ugly. It was absolutely tacky, and Elsa and Warren went in and rescued me. But Elsa, what I want you to do is talk about how you're tying in Casa Decor with this cause. Talk about that so people can understand what's going on.
Well, thank you, Jamie, first and foremost, for having me on. And I want to thank you also for even giving us the opportunity to have this event and to honor you. This event is starting with recognizing real men in our community that have given back and have brought awareness to these causes such as domestic violence and helping at-risk youth. And you've demonstrated a consistent call to action and a consistent
call to action was good.
That's good. Okay.
That was good.
Well, yes. and motivated the community and others to want to give back also. And that night, we're also going to be honoring other honorees, Mark Jackson, Magic Johnson, Sean Marion, Russell Wittenberg, Assemblyman Davis. All of these men have been consistent in their call to action in the community. And how we're tying in Casa Decor is because we feel that your living environment really impacts on your state of mind. And Haven Hills has been doing so much for the community. They have helped over 600,000 families in the past 30 years. And they started in about 1973. And for 30 years, they've done the best that they could in that facility. And their programs have benefited so many women and families. But when I went to their facility, I felt like there was something that I can do to lift the spirits of the women and children that were there. There was something that I can do in my capacity to brighten up the space and to make the space a comfortable space while these women were in transition, because they had been displaced because of violence.
Right.
And they had been taken out of their homes because of violence. And I felt like the place needed to be needed to be that safe haven and be a place that the children can feel comfortable.
Right.
And not that the space is it needed to uplift.
Right.
So
It
what
needed
we're
that Elsa touch.
it needed that Elsa touch.
Right.
So what we propose to do with our action plan is to renovate their on-site school. They're the only domestic violence shelter that has an on-site school.
Got it.
And they are the clearinghouse for all of the domestic violence shelters in the San Fernando Valley. So they have a lot of traffic and a lot of turnover. And what we wanted to do was make the space.
So what is the date of this event?
The date of this event is June 2nd, Thursday, June 2nd. Tickets can be purchased at surrealforreal.org. And the tickets are $500. And we also have an auction reception at $125. We're going to have fabulous auction items there. Fine art by Picasso. We'll have fine jewelry. A Rolls Royce is sponsoring us, so there will be a Rolls Royce.
Wow.
We have Vespa.
Oh, hey.
So we have a lot of teasers for people to come out, and there's going to be an experience that you don't want to miss.
Right. And this is to
here's the other
support.
thing. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Fox.
And Elsa, now, is the $500 ticket the only ticket they can purchase, or are there other tickets?
No,
lower than that, or is that the base price?
No. There's a ticket for $125,
Okay.
which is the auction reception.
Got it.
Which is the auction reception.
And the amount of money that's being donated is to help Haven Hills?
Absolutely. It is to help Haven Hills and the Little Princess Foundation. All of the monies are federally tax exempt, and the proceeds will be split 50-50 between the two organizations.
Wow, so this is a very important event.
Yes.
Exceptionally important. Can you give me the website again so people can go and participate and buy those tickets? What's the website? surrealforreal.org. SURREAL, the number 4, REAL. Wow, this is
.org.
incredible. Fox, man, I appreciate you for reaching out, man, for such an important issue. Elsa was great. She got a bunch of other people here as well as Sarah, and we didn't get a chance to get everybody in.
We have to get Nicole Coleman in because she is the president of the Little Princess Foundation.
Yeah.
And
I'll tell you what. I'm going to jump off, but man, listen. Okay. Everybody out there listening to our voice, please purchase those tickets. Please come to this event, because here's the thing. The money that you will spend will be for such a good cause. You'll be bringing some joy to somebody's heart, man, and that's what it's really about, man, at the end of the day. That's why all those people at their radio station, that's why Elsa and Warren and everybody else do what they do, so people can have some joy in their heart. That's what it's really about, man. God bless.
Man, thank you, brother.
Side.
Appreciate it. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just talk to me, sister, about the Little Princess Foundation you got going. Talk to me. Tell me where people can find you.
The Little Princess Foundation can be found at lpfglobal.org. And the premise behind our organization is to really touch on the internal factors that are affecting the young girls. We talk about Haven Hills providing an environment. We talk about Casa Decor, bringing that element of external need. But Little Princess Foundation talks about the self-esteem that allows domestic violence to happen. It talks about the issues that are going on on internally that that even allow women to allow these things to happen. And so we really address it from that place. We're called Little Princess because we start with the little girl, and we use the term princess because every woman is a queen. We
Right.
were created as queens, and I think it's important for us to get young people, get older people, get women as a whole to understand who you really are, so we can truly eradicate this idea and this thing of domestic violence.
Man, this is powerful. Sarah, let me come back to you because a lot of people don't understand the tiers of domestic violence. I think at Haven Hills, you guys are dealing with intimate terrorism, where you're taking women out of situations that can't. Therapy doesn't help. Talking, counseling, none of that helps. That's intimate terrorism. Could you go a little deeper into that? 2 minutes.
Yeah. For the crisis shelter, the women that are coming there are actually fearing for their lives. Many of them come with literally the clothing on their back and their children's clothing with nothing. So when they get to us, they're really seeking safety, and that's why we keep it confidential and the address is protected. And the focus there is just to help them remove themselves from the crisis and think about the next step and to establish a safety plan in whatever course of action that is for them, because each case is a little different.
Right.
But what the program is focused on is to help them to also find the next step. Because what we're talking about here is the women have been broken down where their self-esteem is so low that they really need the support and the services to help them regain a sense of self, to be able to move forward and make decisions to break that cycle of violence in their lives. And many of them come to us because they realize that the children, if something happens to them, you know, what will happen to my children? And they're also fearful that the impact of what they're seeing is going to then follow suit and the children are going to display those behaviors.
So work with me, Sarah, because a lot of people, I mean, and you know, this might be unpopular, but a lot of people think that we can somehow eradicate violence in relationship. Is that possible? Because, you know, the tier, common couple violence, intimate partner violence, that's different from what you guys are working with, which is intimate terrorism.
Well, it's violence because it can be physical, mental, and verbal that breaks a person down and makes them fear for their life. So when we're talking about, you know, is it possible to salvage the family?
Right.
The statistics that we have is it's a small percentage, but yes, that can happen. And one of the things we have at Haven Hill, sometimes women are in a relationship and they know that they're being abused and they need the support to find some strength. So we have an outreach program where they can get individual counseling services and also have peer support with other women to help, you know, how am I going to handle this?
Right.
And we see some women staying in the relationship because their partner is willing to also seek treatment or help in dealing with the anger and the behavior that he's imposing, because really it's a power and control issue.
Wow. Wow.
And so the services there are to really help them move away from that violence.
Wow, this is tying into our topic. Trust me, if you just tuned in, ZoWilliams, the voice of reason. We got a great topic with some great people right now. They're doing a foundation. What's the name of the website, Elsa? Talk to me.
surrealforreal.org.
How much is the cheapest ticket?
$125.
How much is the most expensive ticket?
$500.
And what is it for?
It is for the Little Princess Foundation and Haven Hills, supporting women, disadvantaged women and children.
Absolutely, man. This is why this is so important. We're about to take a quick break, but when we come back, I got to ask my man a question, and we're going to do something special, but I want you guys to stay close to me. 855-369-9898 is the number to dial. Our topic tonight is the rebirth of bondage, a terrifying look into the human sex trafficking and slave labor market. Trust me, everything they talked about is going to tie into that topic. When we come back, we're going to go deeper into it. I'm ZoWilliams, the voice of reason. I'll be back in 2.2. Holla. Ladies and gentlemen, Zometheus Rising. ZoWilliams is a little melancholy today because it's a tough topic. However, we've got to have tough topics if we are to grow and evolve as people. So we have to address this issue. Tonight's topic, the rebirth of bondage. A terrifying look into the human sex trafficking and slave labor market. We hit you in the head early with the domestic violence issue that plagues our relationships still today. We got special guests in the building. They're doing a special event, and we want to bring everybody in again. Sarah Burdine is her name. Haven Hills is what she represents. It's a facility that takes care of women who are in trouble. They're on the run. They're trying to escape an intimate terrorist. It's just that simple. We've got Elsa in the building, interior decorator extraordinaire, right? And of course, her husband Warren is in here. Warren, talk to me. What are we trying to do right now?
Basically, Baron Fleming is one of the sponsors of this event, and we're trying to encourage every company and men to give back, to support this cause, and to help stop domestic violence. Mm-hmm. So I encourage every man, every company to come out to this event and support this cause. So we have to take the first step to we have to stop it,
right?
And again, I encourage everybody to come out and support it.
And Ebba Lundberg is here as well, and she's partnered with Elsa at Casa Decor.
Yes.
Let's fly your house out.
Yes.
Talk to me about the donation process, because it doesn't have to be $500 or $125.
Please.
Tell me what they can do.
We want to make it really clear that if you can't attend, anything will make a difference. You don't have $500, you don't have $100, $5, anything at this point will make a big difference for these women and for us to be able to achieve our goal. And this is long term. So this is not just the event. This is going to be an ongoing thing. So please go to surrealforreal.org and help. Anything will make a difference.
Anything. That's beautiful. And Nicole Coleman, president of the Little Princess Foundation, I think that's excellent, because sometimes it's very difficult to recontextualize the mind of an adult. Yeah. So sometimes it's easier to catch them when they're young in order to program esteem, self-worth, value, pricelessness, and all of those types of principles into the child. I think what you're doing is excellent.
Thank you.
I appreciate you all for coming and sharing. And now we must go. However, please tell them the website again. What is it, Elsa?
Surrealforreal.org. And also, please tweet at Foxxhole. We have 5 tickets that we're giving away.
Uh-oh. It's a giveaway. It is very valuable. Tell them again.
5 tickets that we're giving away. We need you to tweet at the Foxxhole. Someone will be selected. 5 people actually will be selected to attend this event. You have to be local to the Los Angeles area to qualify. So tweet at Foxxhole.
Y'all better do it right now. Say that one more time. At Foxxhole. Foxxhole. 5 free tickets to this incredible event. One more time. Who's going to be there?
Jamie Foxx, Mark Jackson, Peter Byrne, Magic Johnson,
Pastor
Sean
Mark
Marion.
Jackson.
Sorry, Pastor Mark Jackson, Russell Wittenberg, Assemblyman Mike Davis, Ed Raj, and Boris Kujo.
Well, there you have it. 5 free tickets. I appreciate you guys. Thank you. And now we must go for real this time.
Okay.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Now, we're about to get into our topic. We have some other guests on board right now, but what I'd like to do is take a quick break so I can refresh and reset this whole thing, because what you guys did was very valuable, and I need my people to think about it for a moment. We'll be back in 2.2 with our topic, The Rebirth of Bondage, a terrifying look into human sex trafficking and slave labor market. It's real. 2011, slavery is alive and well. I'm going to be back in a few minutes to talk about it. Peace. Ladies and gentlemen, ZoWilliams, the voice of reason on Foxxhole Radio, Sirius XM 98. Thursday nights, you know what we do here. We try to challenge you. We try to get you to think deeper, more considerate, more respectful of the world and the people in your life. This is a relationship help desk. You got issues with your relationships, this is the place to come. And we're going to talk about everything that most people don't want to talk about, like slavery in 2011. It's a big problem. The rebirth of bondage is our topic tonight. It's a terrifying look into the human sex trafficking and slave labor market. You know, on my Twitter page, at ZoWilliams, I need you to follow me right now. I need you to participate, because what I do is I send out hundreds of tweets and questions because I want to hear your opinion. A lot of times talk show hosts always want to talk and tell you what to do. My Twitter page is designed for you to tell me, answer these questions I send out. Every topic I do the week before, hundreds of questions, and I listen to everything you guys have to say because that's how I learn. I'm going to reset the topic again and tell you the rebirth of bondage. Slavery is alive and well today. And we have some special guests on the phone right now that are going to participate in this conversation. Go to my website, though, www.ZoWilliams.com. And now let me just get into this. We have a guest on right now who's going to talk to us about slavery. But before I bring him on, I have to hit you with a couple of questions. True or false? Slaves work in fields, in agriculture, brothels, homes, mines, restaurants, anywhere slave owners can feed their greed. True or false? Human trafficking is the modern day slave trade. A lot of people don't know this. You know, how much is the going rate for a modern day slave? And how does today's price compare with the cost of slaves from the first American slave trade? You know, slavery is older than America. Much older than America. So how can we eradicate it from the minds of Americans? Because apparently it's alive and well with over 50,000. That's an estimated, conservative estimation. 50,000 new slaves every year come in here. New slaves? I can't even fathom that right now. Right? One more true or false, and then I'm going to go to my special guest. One of them. My question is, how difficult is it to prosecute a human slave trafficking or a human trafficking case? Apparently, it's exceedingly difficult. So without further ado, let me introduce someone who is very, very educated on the topic. Brother's name is Ron Sodalter, and he has pursued a variety of different careers. He has a BA in American history and a master's degree in education and American folklore. Above all of that, dude is a professional guitarist. I mean, he's got an artistic side that's crazy, and he's an academic. It's amazing. This dude is a modern day Renaissance man, and he's also an author. He's written a couple of books on the topic, and one of those books is called Hanging Captain Gordon and the Slave Next Door. Sodalter's articles appear frequently in magazines. I mean, this guy is a cold piece of work, and that's why he's on the Voice of Reason. 2 books. Hanging Captain Gordon, The Life and Trial of an American Slave Trader, and The Slave Next Door, Human Trafficking and Slavery in America Today. I mean, it's a real situation. Without further ado, Ron Sodalter. Sodalter, talk to me, brother.
How are you, Zo? Thanks for having me on, man.
Man, talk to me about the reality of this thing. I'm hearing there's over 27 million slaves.
That's an
worldwide.
estimate, and it's probably an underestimate. They estimate that there are 27 million people in slavery worldwide today. Now here, think of it this way. That's more than twice the number that were taken in chains during the entire 350 years of the African slave trade. More than twice the number. Modern-day slavery today, Zo, is one of the most profitable criminal enterprises of our time. It's right up there with drugs and with guns, and it's responsible for tens of billions of dollars of illegal revenues every year.
Wow. So when you say slavery, what do you mean? Because when I think of slavery, I think of roots.
Mm-hmm. Most people do. When most people think of slavery, Zo, they think of Gone with the Wind and Roots and Uncle Tom's Cabin. In point of fact, the type of slavery we're dealing with today is different than it was before the Civil War, but it is real. Before the Civil War, the law made slavery legal. Today, it's illegal. Masters once took pride in the ownership of slaves as a sign of wealth and status, whereas today's slaves are kept hidden, making it all the harder to locate and rescue victims and to punish the traffickers. Where the slaves in America were once African and African American, today we have, for want of a better term, equal opportunity slavery. Modern slaves come in all races, all types, all ethnicities. Before the Civil War, slaves cost a lot. In the 1850s, Zoe, you would pay $1,200 for a human being. In today's money, that comes to somewhere between $40,000 and $50,000. Nowadays, you can buy a slave for as little as $100, which makes the modern-day slave not only affordable, but also disposable. The government defines slavery. If someone is kept by force, fraud, or coercion. In plain English, if you take the control of someone's life from him or her, that person is both by tradition and by legal definition a slave.
Wow. This is amazing stuff to even hear. How would we recognize a slave? I mean, I've read a bunch of books on it, preparing for this show, and they were saying, you could be sitting in your favorite restaurant and not know that the dishwasher is a slave, not being paid.
Or the housekeeper next door, or the people working in the fields picking our tomatoes and our oranges. It's difficult, sometimes almost impossible to tell. As a matter of fact, we devoted the entire last chapter of our book, The Slave Next Door, to defining how you can perceive someone to be in a slavery situation and what to do about it. If you see a woman who is bruised, who looks down, doesn't look you in the eye, looks like she's being shadowed by someone, controlled by someone, one of the many ways. What you do not do, however, is go in with your 6 guns blazing. We're not the Lone Ranger. If you try and do something yourself to help someone by becoming physical or becoming physically active, you could jeopardize that person's safety and you could jeopardize a prosecution. There is a hotline. It's a 24/7 national hotline, and that number is 888-3737888. And it's down at the Polaris non-governmental organization in Washington, D.C. They're victim and service providers, and they man that hotline, and they are very, very good.
Well, you know what? Let me ask you this question, Ron.
Sure.
If slavery is an equal opportunity, its current form is equal opportunity, anybody could be a slave. Why do we still hear very little reports of whites in slavery? I've really never seen a story of a white person in slavery. Maybe I missed it. Would Elizabeth Smart be considered a white person in slavery?
In point of fact, we interviewed several white people, several black people, and several Hispanics and Asians during the course of writing The Slave Next Door. It depends in large measure on the occupation to which someone is put. For example, down in southwest Florida, which has been called ground zero for slave trafficking in America, the pickers in the fields are primarily Hispanics, Mexicans, Guatemaltecas, people from Honduras. And so it depends. If someone is a domestic, someone is put in a forced domestic nanny, housekeeper situation, that person can be white, black, Asian, Hispanic. There's no qualifier on that.
Wow.
No,
what's very
is
interesting?
A multiracial curse. It's a blight on the nation in general.
Wow. And I think when you speak of this being a blight on the nation, and I think that was a very heavy statement, I think that's the only thing that mars the greatness and the legacy of the ideals that are inherently American.
Well, Zoe, it's interesting because most Americans feel that the Civil War and the Emancipation Proclamation and the 13th Amendment ended slavery in America. In point of fact, there has always been slavery here since the first European discovery. Christopher Columbus in 1493 sent Indians in chains back to Spain. After the Civil War and what is a botched emancipation, we had what was called peonage, which was nothing more than a different kind of debt bondage slavery.
And a lot of people would think peonage applies to people like you and I today because of the Federal Reserve, and we're still paying a debt, but it's not the same kind. I understand where you're going.
People were locked to the land. They were forced to sign contracts or to become sharecroppers. They were not allowed to leave while they owed the debt. And as a result, their families picked up the debt, and it passed from parent to child. And peonage was active in America right up across the South into the civil rights era of the 1960s.
Wow.
So we have had slavery forever. It's just that this kind is hidden, it's more insidious, and it's ugly. Especially, Zoe, when you consider that modern-day slavery doesn't exist without what we refer to as a bundle of other crimes, which include everything from document fraud to kidnapping to torture, rape, assault, and sometimes even murder.
Wow, this is amazing. We have a caller on the line real quick. Let's go to him really quickly, Ron.
Sure.
Caller, Milady from Georgia. Talk to me.
Hi, Zoe. How are you?
I'm alive and well. How are you?
Fantastic. I'm a longtime listener, so is my husband, and we've been listening to your show all night.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to speak up for the gentleman for just a moment, because I've been hearing a lot about the women and everything. But one subject that I didn't hear you touch on is, what about the men in abusive relationships? I mean, what about the men who are abused by their female counterparts? You've got these young men who are getting into these relationships real quick with these young women, and these young women are like, oh, yeah, sure, I'm going to go ahead and hit you. You young and you're a man, and I'm going to beat up on you and everything.
I think
and
we're back
the
at the
minute
violence.
that she lays her hands on him, it's like, oh, well, I've got to defend myself. And nobody says anything to her about she started it.
So, Milady, let me deal with this really quickly. The domestic violence portion of the show, and we can tie it in because there are some similarities, because that same kind of abuse is perpetuated against the slaves, against their will, of course. I mean, being chained, being beaten, and a lot of that is used to break their will. Is that not true, Ron?
It is.
Right. So let me cover what you're talking about really quickly. There's something called the CTS, and that is the Conflict Tactics Survey. And a lot of clinicians and psychologists use this to gauge violence in relationship, milady. Now, what they found is women, according to that survey, are more violent than men. But what most people hate about that survey is that it doesn't account for impact. A man's impact, as Jamie Foxx mentioned earlier, supersedes a woman. A woman can slap a man, push a man, punch a man, kick a man. And yes, she can cause some damage, but typically she's not as strong as he is. But if he decides to unleash all of his fury and rage on a woman, typically we break women. So the CTS Conflict Tactics Survey, it does say that women slap more, punch more, push more, kick more, but it doesn't account for the impact that when men decide to slap, punch, kick, and push. So as I was explaining to Sarah Burdine, that there are tiers in this domestic abuse thing. There are tiers. There's IPV, that's intimate partner violence. There's CCV, that's common couple violence. And then there's intimate terrorism. A lot of times when you deal with shelters like the Genevieve Center and all of that stuff, they're trying to get that woman away. That's the escape now, because there's no counseling. Common couple violence, intimate partner violence can, although it is dangerous and violent and could still end in death for the woman or man, a lot of clinicians and psychologists believe that counseling and, being able to reconcile their differences, that kind of violence won't, in most cases, doesn't have an end of the relationship kind of finality to it. As much so as, say, intimate terrorism. Intimate terrorism is monitored by police reports. Common couple violence and IPV is monitored by counseling and that kind of thing. So great caller, great question. But back to the topic with Ron Sodalter and a lot of the same, characteristics of, say, a domestically abused wife can manifest in the form of, a slave. And here's an example. Domestically abused wives make excuses to stay with this guy. Sometimes slaves get beat into such a submission that, they look to the slave owner as, safety and security and the only thing they know. That's the way they eat. That's the way they survive. Is that not true, Ron?
That is absolutely true, yeah. And there's a very fine line that gets crossed. There was a case in Connecticut that I wrote about in the book, in which a young woman, very, very successful high school student, college student, had fallen into the charms of a what was called a gorilla pimp, and he basically enslaved her, and ultimately she became what is referred to as his bottom girl. She was the one who handled his business account. She was the one who helped bring other girls, underage girls, into his prostitution ring. So it's I think they refer to it as a Stockholm syndrome. Where you start to feel that the person who is controlling you is the one who has your best interests at heart, and sometimes you just feel that you're not worthy of being out from under, and that, as you know, is true in both domestic violence and in some cases of slavery.
So, Ron, really quickly, is pimping a form of sex trafficking?
Not always, and this is a bone of contention among a lot of activists out there. Zoe, as you know, the federal government and Hollywood have made sex trafficking, to most people who are aware of trafficking in America, the only kind of slavery out there, and it is not, as you very aptly pointed out before. There are many other kinds of slavery going on in the country, in sweatshops, in the fields, in laundries, in gardening operations, construction crews, wherever the opportunity exists. But when it does exist as sexual coercion, there are cases where a woman will elect to follow that lifestyle, for better or worse. However, when a man controls her to the extent that he does not let her leave it, in other words, when he controls her by force, fraud, or coercion, that woman or child or man or boy is legally, by federal definition, a slave.
Wow.
And the pimp is in that regard a trafficker and a slaveholder.
Wow.
But there are times when that is not the case.
And let me ask you, because, we could cover, the Mann Act, taking women
the White
across
Slavery Act,
taking women across county lines, or and that could be considered as trafficking. And some of those laws that were in place were used against African American men.
Absolutely. Do you know who the first person to be jailed for the under the Mann Act was?
Tell me.
It was the famous heavyweight fighter Jack
Johnson. Yeah. Well, I knew. I just wanted you to tell me. Sorry.
Absolutely. I knew you knew.
No, but that's good stuff. Jack Johnson.
Very racist. It was also very anti-immigrant, and it was used in many regards to deport people who had come into the country and either had become prostitutes, or who had visited prostitutes, or who the local police simply felt were undesirables or ought to be sent home.
Wow. Let me go to another caller. Sonny from South Dakota. Talk to me, Sonny.
Oh, it's my turn.
Yes, sir.
You and all you guys, I'm so sick of y'all allowing these white folk to come on this radio and tell us that slavery wasn't that damn bad.
I'm sorry, say that again?
No, you heard what.
Go ahead, Sonny. Come on, Sonny.
One of the most barbaric things that ever happened to anybody in this country. We are now at the very bottom of the socioeconomic ladder in this country, and I wonder why. Mm-hmm. Oh, there's peonage. And did you explain to the people that you could buy your way out of that type of slavery, that eventually you would be free and allowed to ascend the social ladder in that country? Mm-hmm. That's something we've been denied. Now, the brother asked me to keep it short. I am so sick of these white folks. Don't want to smell their shit. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Don't want to smell what they did. You crap.
I don't recall ever
hold on,
saying.
Ron. Yeah. Let him finish.
Okay.
Go ahead, Sonny.
He said, well, there was peonage and there was all types of slavery. Because, see, what you clerks went through wasn't that bad. I mean, even what the Irish went through with the potato famine. But they ascended the social ladder in this country. We have yet to do that. And, brother, I'm going to get off the phone. And more power to President.
Hey, wait, Sonny.
Yeah, man, what?
Let me say this, brother. This is why we have this platform. I want you to come on and fill in the gaps that isn't there. You just educated a bunch of people.
So it ain't supposed to be no gap. So like I told your boy, I remember when tanks were rolling down Main Street because of racial strife in this country. You hear me, Zoe?
I hear you.
The guy with the Gatling gun on the back of the Jeep. I remember this, Zoe.
Come on, tell me more about it.
Shit, man. tell you more about it. You don't know, man. Oh, come on, Zo, don't do this to me, man.
I'm doing this because
you learned individuals here.
Wait,
on the radio,
listen to me.
Nobody bring. Do you know what they did to us, man?
Sonny, listen to me, brother. I'm opening my platform because there are people listening to you right now. You are educating people right now, Sonny. So continue to educate, Sonny. We're listening more than me. There are millions of people out there listening to you right now. Take advantage of it, brother, and share your information. Can you do that?
Man, I'm doing the best I can.
Okay, so I'm listening to you, Sonny. Tell me more about the injustices that have befallen black people. I'm listening.
You're looking at it every day, man. Listen, brother, I'm out here in the Midlands. I'm rolling down the Interstate 80. Hunky stopped me, literally told me he stopped me because I was a nigger. This state trooper actually said that to me. He said, I saw two big eyes go by. I'm like, no, the fuck you didn't say that to me. I took that shit to court. They threw it out. The motherfucker the dude wouldn't even come to court. The trooper wouldn't even. You ever heard of a state trooper not showing up in court? Man, listen.
Go deeper.
Man, and it just boggles my mind, and I just see things you young brothers doing that just gonna blow this off like, oh man, it ain't nothing. It ain't. You're gonna mess around, and we're gonna be back in slavery. You young guys got to take the helm now. Enough of this. Well, we're cool with them. They're great. The sisters all wearing their hairs like white women. They putting that shit in their eyes. Man, come on. I got to educate you to being proud of yourself. I shouldn't have to do that.
You're not educating me to be proud of myself. What you are doing, listen to me, brother, I am. But what you are doing and what I don't think you get right now is I want you to vent and talk about what you're talking about. Listen to me, Sonny, listen to me. The reason why I want you to do this is because I understand exactly where you're coming from. Slavery has left a scar on black people that is still manifesting itself today through self-hate, through lack of self-esteem, lack of knowledge of self. Dude, what you're doing right now is explaining to the rest of the world that guess what? It ain't time to make another form of slavery more of a precedent than the first slavery that manifested itself in America. The people here, the African Americans here, are still going through it. So yeah, I am listening to you and I am empathetic to your cause. But please understand that this is an open forum that allows you to call in and express yourself. Black people are still hurting. Black people are still oppressed. Black people are still being disrespected. Even President Obama, who's a black man, is probably the most disrespected black man we've ever seen at that height.
That's disgusting what they doing to them. They just straight, man, you know what? Everybody is, well, maybe they don't even see it, man, what they be doing to that, man. And they never did that to them whiteys when they were up there, man.
All right, brother, but let me just say, man, I appreciate you calling and sharing, and you can do that anytime. You can do that anytime, okay?
So quit calming down the show. Jamie, whatever. Y'all quit calming this down, man.
Calming it down? You want me to get angry with you?
No, some of the brothers who died, like in Chicago, Hampton, them was shot down by them cops over there. They rolling in their graves, some of the shit they hearing on here, man.
Wow.
Excuse me for cussing.
No, it's okay.
All the police are okay. They're great guys. I want to be a cop so I can kill black people, too. Come on, man. Let's put this where it's supposed to be. Let's be real with it. Let's put it where it's supposed to be. Quit trying to be like them. Find some pride in who you are. Look in the mirror and say, man, I'm a beautiful black man. That green stuff and that push straight in your head and try to look like them for what? Tyra Banks, that's really man, I don't care. Black people. You can, or whatever. Put Michelle Obama up there. That's a beautiful black woman.
Well, thank you, brother. I appreciate the call. He shared a lot. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there as frustrated as he is. He might not understand the fullness of the topic that we're talking about, but in my opinion, he does raise some valid points. For me, as I was researching this information, Ron, I saw Ashton Kutcher, Demi Moore, and all of these people who are vehement about ending slave trafficking or sex trafficking and, what are the terms and the legal terms of a slave, and the particular types of visas you have to have, and how certain visas make it easier to make a person a domestic slave, and all of this and that. And in studying all of this stuff, I thought, to be honest with you, Ron, I thought in terms of the big story that happened with Michael Vick. Now, when Michael Vick got caught for the dogs, the people who love animals were so vehement about protecting the animals that they made a symbol of, Michael Vick, like he was this terrible person, and just broke him down and drug him through the mud and all of that. And I thought, wow, if we as people cared about other people in the same manner that we care about the dogs, right? I felt like the people who cared about the dogs were more passionate about the dogs than some people are about other people. So I just felt the same way. Go ahead.
I've listened to the gentleman from Dakota, and at great length, and I've listened to what you just said. I just want to make one statement, and that is, I don't really care what color a person's skin is, where a person comes from, what ethnic origin that person derives from. I care if that person is in a slavery situation. Nor did I ever, nor would I ever, claim that the slavery of the pre-Civil War days in America or elsewhere were anything other than a curse and a blight. It's what drove me to write my first book, which was about the hanging of an American slave trader in the city that was the epicenter of the slave trade right up to and into the Civil War. Do you know what city that was?
Talk to me. Tell the listeners.
Take a guess. What city was the epicenter of the slave trade in America?
I'm not sure.
I
don't know. I'll say Salem, Massachusetts.
Okay, well, how about New York City?
New York City?
Yes, sir. New York City was called the most southern of northern cities. It was a time in which people took a stand, and often the stand they took was wrong. I wrote the book to that effect. When that book was over and finished and published, I co-wrote with my friend who's president of Free the Slaves a book called The Slave Next Door about slavery and trafficking in America today. It has nothing to do with my considering pre-Civil War slavery anything other than a curse, nor do I consider modern-day slavery anything other than a curse. No one has the right to take another person's freedom. No one has the right to establish control over another person's life without that person's consent.
Right.
That is the motivation behind what I do, whether I am white, black, or indifferent. Has nothing to do with it whatsoever. If you want to talk about Chicago, if you want to talk about Obama, fine. I'll have a discussion with you. If you want to talk about modern-day slavery in America, then I will tell you it is pan-racial, it is pan-ethnic, and it is a horror to which most Americans have no concept and of which most Americans are not aware.
Man, Ron, this is great. I love the conflictual back and forth, because at the end of the day, there are a lot of people I knew would misinterpret the purpose of this topic. And I knew some people would come out and be like, well, what about us? Because that is the overall feeling that a lot of black people still have. We still feel like second-class citizens, even though we've made strives, to high levels, whether it be in academia or athletics or whatever, politics or, entertainment. But at the end of the day, I knew once this topic hit the airwaves, some people would feel a little raw about it. Because, listen, if the Japanese are getting reparations, right, and black people aren't, of course we're going to feel something funny about it if our government is facilitating that money. So, again, you make a great point. Your job, what you're doing, your work is important. You said slavery today is pan-racial. That means anybody can be taken. That means anybody can be abducted. But at the end of the day, you got a lot of unresolved issues here in America, and especially within the African-American community, who might feel somewhat slighted when white people take up the torch, white Americans take up the torch to say, let's end trafficking, let's end slavery, because they might feel funny. They might be like, well, how come nobody took up the torch for us? And that's nothing against you, Ron, because your information to me is valid.
There was a white gentleman by the name of John Brown who took up the torch and ended up being hanged for it, that helped to precipitate this country into a civil war.
Wow. I love the fact that you're coming with information. 855-369-9898. Listen, this is an open platform. If you agree, disagree, you want to argue, you want to say something, you want to contribute to the conversation. If you escaped from slavery, call me right now. 855-369-9898. I got to take a quick break. I'll be back in 2.2. But before I do, I want y'all to listen this weekend as the Foxxhole helps your holiday travels with the Foxxhole's Memorial Weekend Mixes. Every hour, we will mix the music and comedy and the hottest DJs in the country all weekend long. We're bringing the party to you only on the Foxxhole, Sirius XM 98. Wow. This topic is on fire. Sex trafficking, slavery, modern day slavery, the rebirth of bondage. That's Janet Jackson talking about control. Woo! Control is very much an issue in modern day slavery. I love the brother who called in, who argued. It's beautiful. I love it. Slavery in modern day Haiti. It's a whole culture down there they call them Restavik, right? And it's a noun, and it means a child who stays with a person other than a biological parent, a domestic servant or slave. Border who is mistreated, a poor child from the country. That's the Restavik culture in Haiti. And a lot of times these third world countries, you know, the American dream is used, right, to bring some of these people into slavery. You know, a lot of times people just come up and say, hey, you know, I got jobs, you know, and these people will leave or send their children off with these people. And next thing you know, the passports are taken away and they're locked up and they can't get out. I mean, it's a cold situation. You know, the definition of trafficking, otherwise known as modern day slavery, consists of three core elements. The action of trafficking, which means the recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of persons. The means of trafficking, which includes threat or use of force, deception, coercion, abuse of power, or position of vulnerability. And number three, the purpose of trafficking, which is always exploitation. In the words of the Trafficking Protocol, Article 3, exploitation shall include, at a minimum, the exploitation of the prostitution of others or forms of sexual exploitation, forced labor, or services. Slavery or practices similar to slavery, servitude, or the removal of organs. You don't get it. This is a serious global problem. Yeah, African Americans, we came out of slavery, and it's tough. And a lot of us are still, you know, enslaved right now. My question to the people out there listening, call me right now, 855-369-9898. Please, right now. I got my friend on, Ron Sodalter, and he's been very valuable to tonight's conversation. But my question is, how would black people feel if reparations were passed for slaves today? A lot of times when slaves they escape today, they don't really get anything. They get sent back home or they don't get anything. So, you know, it's a crazy, crazy world we live in today. I have another guest on right now. I'm about to introduce him. His name is Mr. Di Stefano. And he has covered organized crime for over 3 decades. For the past 20 years, he has been a reporter for Newsday in New York City, specializing in criminal justice and legal affairs. And, you know, Tony has a new book coming out this June 7th, called Mob Killer. And it's about the crime crew of the late John Gotti. And he also is one who is enlisted in the war on human trafficking and U.S. policy being assessed. He has a book, and that was written in August of 2007. I really appreciate you, Mr. Di Stefano, for coming on.
You're close. You're close with the pronunciation. It's Di Stefano, but
Di Stefano.
You
Di
were
Stefano.
close, not second try, but that's okay.
Di
I
Stefano.
spell my name 50 times a day. Don't worry about it.
It's okay. It's okay. And of course, you're on the phone right now with another good friend of mine, a special guest. His name is Ron Sodalter, and we're talking about this issue of human trafficking. And we know it's big in India. We know it's big in China, Thailand, of course, Africa, of course, Haiti. We know it's big. We know it's even big here in America. My question to you is, if it existed and it predates the American government, right? And it's even older than the American, it's back in Egypt, back in Greece. How can we eradicate something that seems to be a part of the human psyche, the devaluation and ownership of other humans? It's like a form of human cannibalism. Talk to me.
Well, I think look, we can't do everything, but we can do some things. And I think what we can do is create an apparatus, a legal structure, an enforcement policy. I'm talking about, from a law enforcement perspective, whereby we create safe harbors for people who find themselves in this situation to seek assistance and refuge. And the other thing we have to do is, I think we really have to, and this is part of what this program is undoubtedly doing, is to make the public aware of the situation to a greater extent. I think Ron has been, from what I know of his work, that's part of his mission to make people aware that you have the slave next door, literally. It may be a domestic working for some foreign embassy or for some foreign mission personnel. It may be a woman from South America on Roosevelt Avenue, say, in New York City, who's in a brothel and coerced into the sex business. It may be farmhands. It may be cleaning crews. It may be a lot of things that are people who remain invisible. But I think if you attune the public to the existence of this problem and get them to focus on what they're really seeing around them, I think you'll have people enlisted to a greater extent to help the people who are caught in this situation.
Well, let me ask you this: how does technology play a role in your campaign?
How did technology play a role
in your campaign to bring awareness?
I'm really a journalist in the sense I don't have a campaign. Well, what I do is I like to excavate information, situations, and put them out there so that people can understand what's going on in the world, particularly with human trafficking and sex trafficking or any variation of it. So I don't have a campaign as such, other than to purvey information.
So let me ask you another question. Let me ask you both this question, Ron and Tony. Let me ask you this: how do everyday purchases that we make contribute to the proliferation of human trafficking?
Can I talk to that for a second?
Ron, go.
Well, first of all, there's a very good chance that the clothes we wear and the food we eat have been tainted by slavery. Cotton, which, as you know, is a symbol of bondage in the Old South, is now being picked by slave labor on 3 continents. The tomato and orange juice you have with your burger at lunch could very well have come to you from a Mexican or Guatemalan immigrant working under coercion. The rug we walk on at home could have been woven in India, Pakistan, or Nepal by one of 100,000 child slaves. Cell phones, pagers, laptops all require an element that comes from an ore that is mined in the Congo, frequently by slaves. Now, does this mean that all tomatoes, all oranges, rugs, cotton shirts, cell phones, and laptops are the products of slave labor? Absolutely not. But some are, and the bear of it is we just don't know. So it is insidious, and it does make its appearance in our daily lives.
Wow.
Well, that's true. I mean, the fact is we just don't know how extensive the fruits of traffic labor or slavery
Right.
intersect with our lives. We just don't know that, but suffice to say that it does.
It does, yeah.
Because, you've seen, and Ron, I'm sure has been involved in a number of campaigns which have uncovered this. There's stuff out there. There's apparel, wearing apparel, footwear. There's, the office that was cleaned down the street, the bushes that were cut on your neighbor's yard, that could all involve traffic labor. And traffic, traffic is the definition of trafficking is pretty all-inclusive. And you could sit back and you could say, well, coercion, force, compulsion. I sometimes feel that way. You could say this in your job. Well, it's not quite that.
Right.
It's not the normal sort of
if you can walk away from it, you're all right.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We can walk away from it. These other people can't. If they try to walk away, they may be in big trouble. They may get hurt. They may get killed. And look, I don't know of that many cases where people have been killed. But suffice to say, in the Balkans, I've heard of a lot of stories of women who were trafficked into the sex industry, and they died. They were killed because they wanted to get away.
Well, one of the reasons that victims or survivors of trafficking are afraid to testify in court against their keepers, their holders, is because the threat has been made: if you go against us or if you run, we will kill your family in the country of origin. Well, often these people come from that country, and they know these people, and they will make good the threat.
Well, that's true, and
So
also
hold on one second. Hold on one second, guys. I know you guys are having a good time sharing this information, and a lot of people are learning a lot about this issue that they didn't know before. Let me reset the topic. Tonight's topic: the rebirth of bondage, a terrifying look into the human sex trafficking and slave labor market. You're listening to ZoWilliams, the voice of reason, on Foxxhole Radio, Sirius XM 98. We're here every Thursday. Please call right now. I'm going to be taking callers in a few seconds at 855-FOX-9898. That's 855-369-9898. You can also go to my website, www.ZoWilliams.com. And I need you guys to follow me on Twitter to participate in this conversation and many others that I hold throughout the week leading up to our shows. That's at ZoWilliams. Please reach out to me and let me know what you guys think about tonight's topic. And also, if you're in the Chicago area on June 25th, I'd love to see you. I'll be doing a relationship roundtable June 25th at 8 p.m. to 1 a.m. at 1070 East 47th Street, Chicago, Illinois, 60653. Please come out and check me out. Let me go to a caller real quick, guys. Tony and Ron, let's answer some of their questions if they have any for you. Let's do it. Mohammed, Illinois.
Hello, this is Idris Muhammad. Yes, I'm
How are you, brother?
to Illinois. Assalamu alaikum, my brother.
Walaikum assalam.
Yes, I am a Somalian immigrant who grew up here in the United States in the St. Louis, Missouri area. And I like to commend my brother who was before me, Sonny, who has this, I felt his pain. I know where he's coming from because I grew up, I was born in another country, but I grew up here for 20 years, 29 years old right now. And I've seen the face of the United States ins and outs. And so I would like to basically say that as an African immigrant, I don't know how I or Sonny have more passion about changing our lives for the better than most of the inner city youth that I grew up with. You know, I basically went through grammar school, high school, and college, and now running my own small business. You know, so it's like, where's that drive that the ancestors of the American citizens born here, you know, bled for and died for? And, I don't know where that is. You know, that's like a question that is still I'm seeking the answer to. You know, looking for it.
Wow. Hey, you know what? I appreciate you taking the time and calling. And Tony and Ron, Not to say that I have an exclusively African American audience, because I don't, but I knew this would be an issue, and this is why I wanted to raise this topic, because a lot of African Americans out there, me included, we still feel a little disenfranchised. We still feel like, man, you know, like I said, when I read the books, I bought some books and I read the books, and I see the passion in you guys to change the world. I mean, a lot of people out there are suffering, but when you've been a part of a people that has been overlooked, habitually overlooked, when we see somebody fighting tooth and nail for an issue that directly affects us, and we feel like that same fight, that same passion hasn't been shown to us, we feel slighted, you know. And I'm not saying it's you guys' fault, Tony or Ron. It's not your fault. But, you know, people going to call in and they're going to talk about it. They're going to talk about how they feel. So don't take it personal. Caller, Gerald from Atlanta. Talk to me.
All right. I've been hearing a lot of, of the comments and the two professionals that you have on. They have, statistical data in reference to, information with the sex slave trade. But let me tell you something. I'm a 40-year-old man who has seen it firsthand. I worked over in Kuwait for almost 3 years, and let me tell you, the sex slave trade and the human trafficking is running very, very rampant over in those parts of the country. Not just Kuwait, but we're talking like Bangladesh. We're talking parts of other parts of India, Asia, Egypt. They have women. They have places in Dubai that are actual like clubs, like sex clubs, where these women, from their native country, they have scouts that go out and tell these women that, okay, we can get you into this modeling agency, or whatnot, or we can get you this really good job over in this part of the country. And once they get a group of them, because they only transport them in groups usually, but once they get them in a certain area, he was right. They take their passports, they take their visas, and they're only issued a certain number on their visa. Like the Americans that go over there, the visas are like number 18 visa, I believe it is. Well, these other foreign women and young men that are in the sex slave trade also, they're given a certain number visa, and they can't leave the country. The sponsors that bring them over there, that's going to eventually sell them to someone who's going to traffic them out as a slave, sex slave trade. They take their visas. They won't let them leave the house. I've literally walked inside of an apartment over in Kuwait that had like 25, 30, 40 women like crammed into one room. They barely feed them, and it's running rampant. It made me have a whole new perspective looking at as far as looking at women. When you're young and you're growing up, you see women and they're pretty much seen as objects, fantasy objects in a man's mind. But once I seen the way that these women were treated over there, and I mean, there have been cases where women have been killed over there in the desert because they tried to run away or they just weren't needed anymore.
That's true. What he's saying is really the quintessential.
Thank you for the call, caller. Appreciate the call. Go ahead.
The quintessential, experience that people are witnessing firsthand with the world of sex trafficking. I mean, it's pretty bad in some of those places. The places he ticked off there. We have it here.
Yes, everything you described happens. Right.
Everything. I mean, you have the extremes. We just had a case in federal court here in New York City today where they convicted 3 guys for sex and labor trafficking, staffing.
But isn't it extremely difficult to get the prosecution? Isn't it extremely difficult to prosecute a trafficker?
Well, it's getting easier as there was a law passed in the year 2000. It's called the Trafficking Victims Protection Act. and every few years it undergoes a reauthorization through Congress. And with the most recent one, which happened in '08, provisions were made to make prosecution easier. And when you can't get someone on charges of trafficking, as I mentioned earlier, there are other offenses that often go with the crime that federal prosecutors will try and nail the person on. So,
yeah, that's true. That's true.
So let me do this. Let me do this really quickly, Tony and Ron. We got to take another quick break, but we'll be right back. I definitely want you guys to continue to expound on this topic. We have some time left, but before I go, Foxxhole Live every Monday night, hosted by funny man Mark Curry, 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time at the Conga Room in downtown Los Angeles. Live, come join us for the live broadcast on Sirius XM 98. Trust me, you guys got to come out on June 25th to my relationship roundtable. It's going to be off the chain. June 25th at 1070 East 47th Street, Chicago, Illinois. I'll be there conducting one of my many relationship roundtables. We're having a great topic tonight. If you've just tuned in, tonight's topic, the rebirth of bondage, a terrifying look into the human sex trafficking and slave labor market. We're having a great time. Great guests, great callers. We're going to keep it going. I'll be back at 2.2. Peace. Man, it's a lot going on in the world. And tonight's topic is specifically designed to elucidate and enlighten and pull the shades back so we can see what's happening right in our backyard. Tonight's topic, the rebirth of bondage, a terrifying look into the human sex trafficking and slave labor market. I'm ZoWilliams, the voice of reason, on Foxxhole Radio, Sirius XM 98. I'm here every Thursday, and these are the type of topics that we like to just, reveal to our people. There are a lot of celebrities that are involved in this issue, the issue of human trafficking and modern day slavery. And, I have a little list here. But what's interesting, I have a question. Why does it seem like black celebrities are less involved than white celebrities in stopping modern day slavery? I mean, on the list I got, it's a short list. Most of them are white. Am I playing the race card? 855-369-9898. That's the number to dial. We've got Natasha Bedingfield. She's a supporter of the UK anti-slavery organization, Stop the Traffic. There's Camilla Bell. There's Wyclef Jean. That's a brother. There's Emma Thompson. Who else do we have? I know we got Ashton Kutcher and Demi Moore. But why isn't Puffy and Jay-Z and, some other people that represent, because slavery is a sore subject for black people. Why aren't more black people doing more? I saw the president talk about it. I saw him speak on it. We got some great guests in the studio or on the phone with us tonight. We got Ron Sodalter, right? We've got Tony DeStefano. I'm going to get your name right. Tony DeStefano. I'm going to get it.
There you go.
And we also have a new guest, a special guest who just is going to join you guys as well. His name is David Batstone. I want to say that name right. David Batstone. Batstone, of course, he's an author as well. He served 6 years as an executive editor of Sojourners magazine, and also is a founder of the Business 2.0 magazine and contributor to the New York Times, Wired, the Chicago Tribune, Spin, and the San Francisco Chronicle. He is the recipient of 2 National Journalist Awards and named the National Endowment of the Humanities Chair at the University of San Francisco for his work in technology and ethics. Title of his book, Not for Sale, The Return of the Global Slave Trade and How We Can Fight It. Welcome, Dave, to the show. Say hi to Ron and Tony.
Hey, great to be on your show.
Thanks for coming on, man. Let me just explain. I have a lot of listeners, a whole bunch of listeners, and it's racially diverse. But a lot of my brothers and sisters are calling in, and they're a little upset because there's so much emphasis put on the modern day slave trade and probably not enough on the past slave trade and the people that it has left in its wake. You got to remember, in 1965, when the slaves were freed, they were just dumped on the American economy, right? And there was no provisions for them to survive, and then modern or different or evolutions of slavery manifested, like peonage and working a debt off, and all of these things started happening. Correct? A lot of people are still a little upset. So when I encourage them to call, don't take it personal, because they will be calling and they are a little upset about it, as am I. But this is to bring awareness to what's happening right now, and not that our African American slavery and the mental slavery that has ensued is any less important. But a lot of people want that addressed, as do I. So let's talk about it right now, Dave. I'm glad that you made it. Let's dig right into it. I've heard that sweatshops, Nike sweatshops, Apple sweatshops, even all the way back to Kathy Gifford, I've heard that it's basically so ubiquitous that it's such a daunting task to be able to stop human trafficking, because a lot of human trafficking is underpinned by a lot of business and economy. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I want to start with where your question began, because I think it would be a disservice to try to somehow, what better term, whitewash, overlook what has happened historically in the slavery of the Americas. Mm-hmm. And I just want to say that those of us who are engaged in trying to confront and undermine the modern slavery, it starts in many African American communities. And one of our closest partners for Not for Sale is in Oakland, California. It's a terrific group named Missy, who brings young girls 13, 14 years old that are being controlled and otherwise forced to sell their bodies every night. And it's young African-American girls in cities across the United States. So let's not think it's just something over in Asia or Latin America or Africa. Mm-hmm. But it starts in our own communities here, whether we are black, white, Asian, whatever we might be. This is not something that is, a new issue that somehow overlooks the history of exploitation in the Americas. So I really want to start there.
I think that's awesome, because let me just say this. America is a very ambiguous place in the sense that we promote freedom and justice and equality for everyone, and but at the same time there are great atrocities going on, and in my opinion, great oversights. Yeah. I mean, black people have contributed such. I mean, if there's no black people in America, there's no America. If you just look at the contributions that we've done. So a lot of people are really disappointed and upset. But one of my callers, Sonny, went on a tangent. I wanted him to go on a tangent because he was hurt. And, he wants to know, how come we're not cared for like the modern day slave? Talk to me, Dave.
Well, the fact of the matter is that a very historically conscious advocate that fights modern day slavery will link it to the same historic slavery that's been a part of the history of the Americas. And so to see, when I went all over the globe to, I started in my own an area of Oakland, Berkeley, San Francisco, and then went to across the United States and internationally. The picture of the modern slave is someone who is economically vulnerable, does not get access to political justice in an equal fashion, and has ambiguous immigration status. So the first two categories has been the story of many African Americans in the Americas. And certainly 240 years ago, having ambiguous immigration status, that is, that you don't have state rights or citizen rights, was certainly the plight of African Americans. So I think we see it as a historical continuum and link and something that has not passed away. And I think that's the right approach to take, rather than, trying to somehow have amnesia about our past and try and create a new social issue.
Right. That's a good way to deal with it.
How do you account for the fact that most according to the federal government anyway, most people at risk of being enslaved in America today are U.S. citizens.
Wow.
That some 17,000 foreign nationals, approximately, are trafficked into slavery in this country a year, whereas the government estimates in the hundreds of thousands America's young people, and I mean black, white, Asian, Hispanic, at risk of being caught up in slavery every year. So you talk about, not having rights, not having questionable citizenship, having questionable rights. In point of fact, a lot of the people we're talking about are people from our own streets, towns, and cities.
And back to your point originally, Ron, of every ethnic group, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow. Really quickly, let me do this. On our Twitter page, Miss X Academic wrote, young black celebrities aren't as politically active because they haven't had to struggle like the older generations who were involved in civil rights movements. So that was her answer to why there aren't as many black celebrities involved in this global slave trafficking thing and trying to stop it. And then we had another brother some of these names, these Twitter names are amazing, at Dat Boy Snoop, regarding few blacks involved in abolishing slavery. He said, in a land where the almighty dollar rules, they are afraid to step out and risk their paychecks and celebrity status. Man, this is cold. And then some more information here, where U.S. sex trafficking may occur. We have a list here that says Asian massage parlors, where women typically live on site. Prove commercial sex to, this is crazy right here. Commercial sex to maybe, 6 to 10 men a day, 7 days a week. A lot of them are internet-based, residential brothels, street prostitution, hostess and strip clubs, escort services, truck stops. A lot of truckers listen to this show. A lot of lot lizards might be, enslaved to somebody. We don't know. Where U.S. slave labor trafficking may occur, they say agricultural and farms, domestic work, a lot of, and let me ask you guys this about the visa, because some of these visas that are expired, I think there's G5, B1, and they have different status, but some of those statuses are so ambiguous, and especially the ones that belong to the people that have domestic immunity. What is that called? Not domestic immunity. What's the word I'm looking for? Because I read it. Diplomatic immunity. Because a lot of these guys get some, domestic help, may abuse them, but then they can always go back to their country, and then that person gets deported, and nothing, they can't really be prosecuted. Talk to me about the complexity of not the passport, but the visas, and how that sometimes hinders the ability to prosecute somebody who has a slave.
Well, if you're talking about the visa issue, there are a number of levels to the visa issue. A lot of the people who are trafficked either just don't have visas, or they're out of status. They had a temporary visa, tourist visa, or came in over the border without any papers. And the visa is not an issue for them. Once they're caught in the situation, and if they cooperate with law enforcement, they can get a special kind of T visa and other kind of status, so long as they help law enforcement. Mm-hmm. If you're talking about the people who are the traffickers or who are exploiting the trafficked labor, diplomatic immunity may be a factor in immunizing them from prosecution. Right. There have been some horrific cases. There are also cases of people who are just, U.S. citizens of foreign origin, or are here as business people long term, who don't have diplomatic immunity, and they've been found in some cases to exploit the trafficked people. They can get prosecuted, and they can be, prosecuted, sent to jail if they get convicted, or deported because, they've basically violated the law in their immigrant status. Mm-hmm. So the visa thing has a number of dimensions to it. Depends on what you're talking about.
Right, Tony.
The person or the person who's actually doing the trafficking.
Right, Tony. You want to expound?
Well, what happens? I think Ron had said this earlier. he said, prosecutors now are picking up the mantle of prosecution, at least federally and sometimes at the state level. Mm-hmm. And very often, if you get indicted by a federal prosecutor for a trafficking-related offense, 85%, 90% of the time, you're going to get convicted of something.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You're going to get convicted. It may be not for a trafficking charge. It may be for money laundering, RICO, assault, something. They're going to get you. Once you get indicted, it's bad luck for you in the federal system.
Well,
the problem is before they get into the system, before a defendant gets into the system, the federal government, and I've looked at the data on this from the Department of Justice, they have a lot of bleed-off on these cases, meaning the cases that the FBI brings or the Customs brings or whatever to the prosecutors just don't get prosecuted because there's a problem. And usually there's a problem with the witness. There's sometimes a problem with the evidence. And sometimes the witnesses disappear or they have a change of heart. So the case the FBI brings in or Customs brings in to say, hey, we got a good trafficking case here, well, it falls apart. And you see that happen a lot more than you think. I've seen statistics where it's like maybe in some districts it's like 50, 60% of the cases. They just fall by the wayside.
So let me do this really quickly. If anybody out there is interested, go to the websites. There are a lot of websites out there from different organizations like www.notforsalecampaign.org, thepolarisproject.org, IJM.org, which is International Justice Mission.org. There's another one here. I think it's freetheslaves.net. Please go check these out. I mean, there's a lot of, resources out there on this topic, and there's a lot of information out there. And then recognizing the signs of, let me give you this also. Let me give you this number too. If you've suspected someone, or someone who's maybe, potentially a slave. I mean, this is really heavy stuff to be able to recognize. There's a hotline number, 888-373-7888. And then they have this list of signs, common work and living conditions of the individual might be in squalor, poor mental health or abnormal behavior, poor physical health, lack of control, they probably are mentally, unstable. I mean, it's a lot of signs, but that's so broad, it could cover so many different people. But what I want to do right now, I'm going to come back to callers, and but after this break, I'm going to take a break, but I want you guys to go to these websites and participate. It's very important that you guys do that. The Rebirth of Bondage, a terrifying look into the human sex trafficking and slave labor market. I mean, slavery is still alive and well. I can't believe it. But before I go to the break, let me just say this. The Cheryl Underwood Show. She has a great show. Every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time with Glenda, Kyle, Stacy, and James. Politics, comedy, sexism in the serious. It's Cheryl Underwood. It's her show. It's a lot of fun. Only on the Foxhole, Sirius XM 98. I'll be back. How do you get revenge? If I were a slave, that's what I would be looking for. I'm an old Nat Turner type. I'm looking to kill massa. I'm not trying to be funny. This is a serious topic, but I'm the Nat Turner version. The Rebirth of Bondage. A terrifying look into the human sex trafficking and slave labor market of today. That's what's crazy. I can't believe we're doing a show about modern day slavery, but apparently it's alive and well. We got a lot of Twitter responses at King Corey regarding if modern day slavery is worse than the pre-Civil War slavery. He says it absolutely is. Higher percentage of black people are in prison today than were enslaved in 1850. Because people don't know. Being in prison is modern day slavery. Even the Constitution lets you know that. That's cold-blooded right there. That's real talk. We got at that boy Snoop. He got another one. He says you can point the finger at institutions ranging from the NCAA to the entertainment industry. Few gain from the sweat of many. Wow. Then we got at TWoo86 regarding black celebrities. He says, money over everything. Nothing else matters but the money that Cats is trying to make. The rebirth of bondage, man. That's what we're talking about. Once again, I've got Ron Sedalter. I've got Tony DeStefano.
Close.
DeStefano.
Yeah, that's good. Close.
I got to get it. DeStefano. Tony DeStefano.
you got to practice.
And I do. And we got David Batstone on the phone. These guys are great authors. Ron Sedalter, what's the name of your book?
The most recent book is called The Slave Next Door, Slavery and Human Trafficking, Slavery in America Today.
Tony, your books?
The most recent is Mob Killer, which is coming out June 7th. And of course, the relevant one is The War on Human Trafficking.
And Dave Batstone.
Yeah, not for sale. I'm the worst marketer of the whole lot. So my book's called Not for Sale.
I'm the worst marketer of the whole lot is a great response. Once again, I want to remind you guys got to come see me June 25th, 2011. I will be in Chicago. I'm doing a relationship workshop, a relationship roundtable. A lot of people have wanted to see me come out and do this thing. This is what I do. This is my passion in life. Come see me. I'll be at 1070 East 47th Street, Chicago, Illinois, 60653, 8 p.m. to 1 a.m. in the morning. It's going to be incredible. Right now, we're going to go to some callers, guys. Let's answer some questions. Pastor Meach, Wisconsin, talk to me.
Hey, how you guys doing this evening?
Very good, brother.
Yeah, I've been listening, and you hit something on the head a few minutes ago when you talked about the penal system is actually one of the biggest exploiters of human trafficking for slavery that there is right here in the United States, according to the 14th Amendment. You know that man is able to be held without pay or any of that through incarceration. So I think the penal system is the major thing, especially when it comes down to African Americans. And we have to be careful with this word, human trafficking. If we're not careful, we're going to invent a law that will lock up a lot of black folk because you got the street games, the little boys that's out on the corner that's simply grinding. You got young ladies that's out there grinding. And in most cases, they're not being trafficked or beaten. Now, I understand that. Now, there was a statement by somebody on your panel that talks about the children, the 14, 15-year-old, 13-year-old kids. We understand that right there is that definitely needs to be chastised and addressed. But moreover, there are a lot of adults and young people that leave the foster care system after being exploited.
Hey, you know what? That is a great point, what he just said. The foster care children, some of them, a lot of them are runaways, too, that actually get pulled into this. Brother, I appreciate the call. I got to move. Tamir from California, we got to make it quick because we're getting close to the end here. Talk to me.
Good evening. Great topic. One criticism, Zoe, you guys need to do a much better job in handling the callers who call and sit on the phone for 15 to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
To the gentleman who wrote the book, I'd like to know if any of their money from the book sales are going to fight this cause that they're talking about. I know, Ron, I think...
What money is that?
Yeah, really.
These are not the kinds of books that make you a lot of money, sir.
Yeah, they really don't.
Believe me when I say that. This is not Gone with the Wind. This is not John Grisham. These are books that we put out there, hopefully, to make people aware of what's going on. And I'll try and speak for Tony, if I may, and for Dave, and say, ain't none of us getting rich on these books.
That's true.
Wow. Hey, I appreciate your call, Tamir. And, brother, reach out to me on the days we do the open line show. Because on the open line show, we try to pack in as many people to get their points across. A lot of times on shows like this, with topics like this, we got to get out the pertinent information. And although the callers do make our show great, sometimes we have a limited amount of space to be able to accommodate them all. But I do appreciate you for hanging on as long as you did. And guess what? You got through. So I appreciate you, brother. Thank you very much. Now, we're going to have to wrap this show. It's been an incredible show, but I still got questions, man, crazy questions. Like when we talked about the prison system. I mean, a lot of people were upset with Guantanamo Bay because there was no legal precedent and there were no rules. We just get to imprison people for an unspeakable amount of time. There's no time limit for which we can hold them. There's no constitutional precedents. They just erected a prison and threw people in and tortured, and we got something out of it. But is that slavery? I mean, it can go on and on and on and on and on. Let me just say, Ron, I appreciate you. Tell them where they can find you. Website, really quickly.
RonSoodalter.com, SOODALTER. Zoe, can I say one thing before we wrap it?
Really quickly.
Very quickly, I suggest to anybody in the audience who wants to learn more about what's going on a daily basis, go to Google. Google has a page called News Alerts, and type in human trafficking. Every day you will get an update.
Good stuff, good stuff. Tony, where can they find you? Tell them your last name, too. Don't let me murder it again.
And the website is, I have a website, www.TonyDeStefano, DESTEFANO.com.
Man, appreciate you.
The trafficking book and all the other mob books and stuff that you might be interested in.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. And Dave, where can we find you? Where's the book?
Hey, there's about point people to two websites. One is notforSaleCampaign.org. And there, if you're a student, you're a person of faith, you're a business leader, you're into politics, whatever your passion, then we link you up to specific things you can do to fight human trafficking in your community. And one of the things I would say everybody listening to tonight can do is we have an app that's on the Droid and the iPhone, or you can just go to a website. It's called 3-2work.org, and it gives it assigns grades based on the evaluation of how a product is made. So the shirt I have on could either be an A grade, which means that no one was forced to work on that product, or the shoes I have on might get an F, which means that you destroyed or limited people's lives by buying those shoes. So we start shopping differently, then companies are going to start looking differently on the protocols that they use to go about producing their products.
David, what's the name of the app again? Really slow?
3, and then the number 2, work. Free to work. It's free download. It doesn't cost you anything. Free to work. If you don't have an iPhone or an Android, go to the website, free2work.org.
Thank you.
It doesn't cost anything. Free to the number work.
Hey, I appreciate you all. I appreciate all the callers. I appreciate Sonny for calling in and sparking the debate. Listen, that's what this platform is about. I'm a young cat. I care about the past. I care about my African beautiful heritage. I care about my culture. I care about my people. But I also care about humanity. That's why we do topics like this. Just because it happened to us doesn't mean we can't get through it. And doesn't mean we need the validation of those who did it to us to get through it. Sometimes we got to learn how to validate ourselves. Sometimes we got to learn how to be happy with who we are and be thankful that we're where we are. We can do better. But the only way to do that is to come to terms with that which we are afraid of. Sometimes the knowledge of who we are is fearful, because it makes us responsible for what we know. Listen, the world is a terrible place when you're uninformed. Get some of these books. Study to show yourself approved. I appreciate everybody for their participation tonight. We're going to keep stepping on your neck psychologically. ZoWilliams, the voice of reason on Foxxhole Radio. We have an incredible platform here, and I'm going to use it to the fullest of my ability. Get at me, ZO@SiriusXM.com. You can agree, disagree, approve, disapprove. I want to hear your voice. Follow me on Twitter @ZoWilliams, ZOWILLIAMS. Go to my website, www.ZoWilliams.com. Let's continue the dialogue. That's the only way we're going to be able to challenge each other and get information. I appreciate y'all. I'll see you next week. Holla.